Mr. Kasimis is the Director of Operation and Generation Management in PPC Renewables. He has been active in this sector for 15 years on the construction and operation of wind farms. He's a member of the board in Eletaen. He has been engaged in the implementation of the first repowering in Greece, and he has also been part of the very nice action last Christmas in the Christmas village of Trikala in collaboration with Trikala municipality and the regulatory authority. As we said in the beginning, old blades of PPC were turned into benches. So Mr. Kasimis will talk a bit about this experience of the first repowering in Greece. You have the floor, Mr. Kasimis. Can you hear Mr. Kasimis? Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this event on repowering and recycling. I will share with you our experience from the first repowering of the equipment of the older wind farms in the last years in PPC Renewables. I will share my screen. So first, I will talk about the geographical distribution of the old wind farms on the Greek territory, the stages for repowering. I will talk about the challenges and the difficulties faced throughout the process, how we implemented the repowering project, what are the options in this process for managing the older equipment of wind turbines, and I will also show you many pictures from examples of decommissioning and repowering in the Greek wind farms. PPC Renewables was a pioneer in Greece. It installed the first wind farm in the beginning of the 90s, so closing the end of life of the equipment, so beyond the 20 years, we are now faced with the challenge of repowering the equipment. This process started in 2010 and was completed until 2018, and then we proceeded to the installation of new wind farms in the same areas, same location as the older farms. The older wind farms which were repowered were on the islands of the Aegean, for example, Chios, Limnos, Samos, Ikaria, Karpathos. In total, we had 101 wind farm locations, and by repowering, now we have brought the number now to 23. So maturation and advance of technology, wind power technology, is huge, and if we also take into consideration the fact that the maximum power of wind turbines was 500 kilowatts in the past. There is no such number currently in production. The installed capacity in average now is 2 to 3 megawatts at the moment. And now repowering has been divided in two stages. The first stage is the dismantling, decommissioning of the equipment, where we decommission, dismantle and manage the components on the ground, wind turbines and air grids. In this case, we dismantle pillars, cables, transformers and the blades. At the second stage, for the first stage of implementation, we dismantle the infrastructures that are invisible, cables and foundations in the ground. The third stage is the rehabilitation of the natural environment on the site of the older, the pre-existing wind turbines, but the number, of course, of the wind turbines has been reduced by repowering. And in many cases, according to the law and environmental terms, we have proceeded to reforestation activities either in the same area or in the broader region. At the second stage has no surprises. This is the installation of the new wind farm at the same place, same site. So a new wind farm is replacing the older one. The challenges we were faced with throughout this repowering process have been mostly on the islands, where there were lacks in terms of infrastructures. Certified facilities, for example, for management of equipment. There was no expert staff which is needed for such a process. And if you add to the equation the fact that our islands, because of the remote areas where they are located, are dependent on the weather conditions, so you can realize that all the works and transportation of materials or machinery and staff has been a headache for the process to be completed. Finally, we could say that decommissioning of the wind turbine equipment actually involves the same difficulties and concerns as the installation of new equipment. I mean that you have the factor of the intensity of the wind, for example, which is a major problem concerning the decommissioning or dismantling of the equipment. Now I will talk about the adequacy of the decommissioning entities.
The first thing we have to take into consideration is the technical adequacy of the operator dismantling. They have to have experience on that, and what is more, decommissioning wind turbines of an age of 20 years or older, you do understand that the crews are not aware of the technical problems of the time, back 20 years back. So we have to be very cautious which engineering crew we engage. During this process, we have to take also into consideration that the sites where the wind turbine equipment has to be transported are both subject to licensed bodies and that the transporters are licensed to handle such equipment. Let's talk about the decommissioned material management options. Once decommissioned, the first we need to take account of is the commercial perspective. Worldwide, secondary markets are in place where one may sell wind turbines. Wind turbine destinations are one option. Wind turbines, after decommissioning, might have some problems, but can be sold as such, or wind turbines can be refurbished before selling. And the second option is to break down the equipment into components and then sell it in the secondary market in places where such wind turbine types are still operable. Another option would be to turn all this equipment to scrap, recover steel, and scrap material is then managed by licensed bodies properly. A fourth option that is really interesting, and I would like to welcome Eletain's initiative together with the municipality of Trikala, is to repurpose those materials. Parts of the wind turbines can be used such that society can welcome their use. An example of that is the Mill of Elves in Trikala, the Christmas market, where blades were turned into benches and signboards within the Christmas village. And we really need to express our gratitude to the municipality providing us with this opportunity. Having such a wonderful case demonstrated. In terms of decommissioning on the site, first and foremost, we need to investigate accessibility to wind farms in order to see whether access of large machinery is possible on site. Secondly, the reverse accessibility has to be considered. We dismantle equipment and store it temporarily either within the farm or nearby, and subsequently, in our case, it is taken by ship to its end management facility. Wind turbines are treated in non-hazardous solid waste management facilities. Otherwise, they're taken to other facilities to obtain steel out of the material. We proceed likewise when all equipment is to be transported to secondary markets. Here are some photos of legacy wind farms being dismantled. Material is being arranged within the site, similarly as when erected. And here, in terms of reverse access to site, you can imagine the difficulties for transport. At the bottom, you can see a truck loaded with reinforcements obtained from foundations of a wind farm. Here, you can see that foundations are being shredded and materials are being separated. Separation between reinforcement and gravel. Subsequently, after cleaning the foundation, it is backfilled using material from nearby, and finally one can observe that the landscape has been reinstated. At the bottom you can see the two new repowering wind farms. In front of them used to be the site of the legacy dismantled wind farm. On this slide, I would like to talk about the repowering project in the Monitoplou wind farm on Crete. On the left-hand side is the state of the wind farm after removing the wind turbines. Foundations are still there, whereas on the right-hand side, both foundations and material has been removed, and the natural landscape has taken its place. Turbines have been replaced with two wind turbines of 900 kilowatt each. Active use of wind turbine materials, such as the Christmas village in Trikala deployment that was very successful. Over the next, going forward, we stay in coordination with the municipality, and together with the Hellenic Wind Energy Association, we have further projects in the pipeline. As to our conclusions, the difficulty we were faced with is that there was no technical guideline in place for us. The existing institutional regulatory framework and the conditions set for each wind farm individually considered, we have managed to complete this process successfully. It is a lesson we have drawn, and on this approach we will go forward in next projects. Repowering, in our experience, is a very complex and demanding process, equally to erecting a new wind farm. And besides the existing regulations, it is a challenge having a central coordination for alternative wind turbine blade management and management of wind turbines in general. Thank you very much. I remain at your disposal for information or questions.